Hello, beloveds. Welcome to the Amanda Collins podcast. It's my honor to help you awaken to joy, be your greatest self, and live a life you love. I'm Amanda Collins. Each week, I'll share tips, practices, and rituals to help you feel the storehouse of joy inside. I'll answer your questions and talk with thought leaders from around the world about health, wealth, love, conscious living, and parenting. Are you ready to live your most fulfilled life? Debbie Litcher, founder of Freedom Embodied Life and author of the forthcoming book, The Congruence Code. For nearly a decade, Debbie has helped women worldwide have a healthier relationship with food, their bodies, and themselves. As a spiritual mentor, embodiment coach, and food addiction expert who worked for Cosmopolitan Magazine internationally, Debbie navigated her own path to freedom from food, drug, and codependency addictions, and today combines decades of experience in the health and fitness industry with her unique, grounded approach to helping women get free. We are just so grateful to have you here, Debbie. Thank you so much.
Oh, Amanda, it's so lovely to be here. Thank you.
Oh, well, I would just love to start off with, will you share your incredible story with us for whatever you want to share, just to this point?
Yes. I mean, I was one of those high achieving, looks like I have it together on the outside kind of women who, my life was pretty good. I was an expert in the health and fitness industry, and for the most part really looked like the picture of health. I was a Pilates expert. I was helping other people with my knowledge and all these things. And yet inside I felt like a complete fraud because I was completely obsessed with food during the day. I was constantly restricting during the day, and I'd come home and I would feel really exhausted from giving myself to everybody else, and I would say, F it, I want what I want. And I would go and I would start to have something tasty. And for me, as soon as I started eating, I just didn't want to stop. And like being full wasn't an indication to me to stop eating. It was like something else took over. And it was really hard because it's like I was one of those people who I knew what to do. I had all of the nutrition knowledge. I had done so much self-help. I had done therapy. I had done so much inner work. And it was so frustrating because I still just couldn't get myself out of this vicious cycle. And for me, like, especially being an expert, I just felt a lot of self-doubt. I felt a lot of shame, and I felt anxious all the time because I just felt like this like inner sense of things out of control, but that I had to gain control all the time. And so I like never felt just okay. And it was a really, really challenging thing. And I feel like what really ultimately got me to a place of just being so done and sick and tired of it was really this like feeling of being like leading this double life, like feeling like the energy of having to be someone on the outside and feeling so inauthentic because I was living incongruently on the inside. Like I just felt empty and anxious and alone and out of control. And like, and for me, it like, that really was, it was like a bottom for me. It was like an emotional bottom, and it was really hard because my life wasn't that bad on the outside. I could really delude myself for a long time being like, oh, it's not that bad, but then I just continued to feel more and more empty and more like I was just missing the life that I was supposed to be living. And so, ultimately I had that reckoning. I had that moment. I was sitting alone in a car and I had just reached that place where I was just exhausted. I was so sick and tired of trying to get it together, look like I was together, pull it together, control it, figure it out. I was just done. And I remember just sitting in my car and just letting myself drop and just feel the real depression that was going on, and feel like just like fully letting myself go and crying and like not trying to stop it, just letting myself be down and feeling sad and not knowing how to pull myself out and stopping trying to pull myself out of it. And I just remember sitting there and at one point this thought came to me, and it just can't get any worse than this. And it wasn't like it can't get any worse. Like, I mean, like, it was just how I was feeling, like I felt so empty, and I felt so far away from the life that I was meant to be having and the people I was meant to be helping. It's like, I just felt so inauthentic. I'm like, it can't get any worse than this. And then I remember it was like out of nowhere, this other voice said, well, if it can't get any worse than this, it can only get better from here. And it was remarkable because like something in that moment shifted for me, where I was like, oh, well, it can only get better from here. I don't even know what that means, but it like gave me this piece of hope. And from that place, I just asked the universe, I'm like, I don't know. So just, I'm open. So just show me. I got no idea where to go from here. And it was really, really interesting because very soon after that, I met my first spiritual mentor. And, let me tell you that at that point, I was so in the food. I was binging and restricting. I was so desperate to curb my appetite that I had started doing drugs and using cocaine to try and curb my appetite. I was a workaholic. I was in codependent relationships. I mean, there was like a lot of things that were, incongruent in my life. And it was fascinating because when I started working with this mentor, we didn't go in and start to try to fix my food. We didn't go in and try to fix these things in my life. It wasn't actually self-help. It wasn't self-help at all. What we really had to do was, what she showed me how to do was to get free from the stuff that was blocking me on the inside so that I could come back to my own inner guidance system. And she taught me how to become congruent internally. And it was from that place of learning how to become congruent internally and getting free from the stuff that was blocking me on the inside that I actually gained access to the inner power where all of the addictions fell away. All of them fell away. And it wasn't that I was like managing my food or all of a sudden I gained control or like I was like figuring it out. It was like the problem just went away. And so it was really amazing. Like I felt like who I got to become after that was somebody who was present and like available in my life, like someone who felt confident to trust myself to make healthy choices and that I could actually move forward and that I could just be me. And from the place of just being me and feeling authentic, I was like, well, now I can help people. I don't feel like a fraud anymore. And that was almost a decade ago. And since then, it's just been amazing because I now get to help other women with the exact same process. I get to help them really come back home to themselves, Amanda. I get to help them get free from the stuff that's blocking them at a deeper level. Because the women who come to me, they already have tons of nutrition knowledge. They already know what to do. They've done tons of inner work. They have spiritual beliefs, but something is still not working for them, where they're still going to those old patterns. They're still going to those sabotaging cycles, and they feel a lot of shame about it. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, let me help you get congruent inside so you can come back to you and you're not dependent on anybody else, any other experts, any of this kind of stuff, but because you're so connected to your own inner guidance. And that lights me up.
That's so beautiful. And I, first of all, just want to honor you for, just being so brave and just, going deep. Like you went to the root cause, and then, from that place, just receive that healing. And I love that you said, it's not about controlling diet or anything. It's just like that what you were trying to numb before, it doesn't exist. You've cleared it, you've healed it. And so now it's like, okay, like, so do you find now it's just you have this lovely relationship with food? I mean, how does it differentiate than before?
Yeah, it's so fascinating. So, the very process that I take my clients through, I take them through something that I call the freedom formula, which really has these 7 access points to becoming internally congruent that allow them to live this way. And it's really a way of living and being. And what I find is that when I continue to follow the very same principles and practices, then I just have an intuitive relationship with food. Food is, what has happened to me is, because I was the kind of person who was always going on a diet, and as a health and fitness expert, I knew a lot, and it was really easy for me to hide my food addiction in the obsessive ways of eating and addressing food and body in the health and fitness industry. Because there's always something to train for, and there's always something to lean down for, and to, there's always a way that I could kind of hide in it. But it's still, even if I was like, okay, I'm going to cut out all carbs, or I'm only going to eat after 12, or I'm not going to eat before 4, or like whatever the rules were, the obsession never went away. I was constantly thinking about food. I was constantly thinking about my body. I didn't have freedom. I just had maybe abstinence from certain things, but then like after a few days, a day and a time would come and I would say, well, I've been good and I deserve this, and I, F that. And, and then there was no freedom. And so for me to be free means that I am so in tune with what works for my body and what doesn't. Like, my body's gotten very, very smart because of the practices that I have trained her in, and that she's trained me in, frankly. She's done a lot of training with me. And so, today, yes, I don't eat sugar. Yes, I don't eat gluten. Yes, I don't eat dairy, but it's not coming from the place of me imposing a dietary structure on myself, but rather an organic manifestation of, this is actually what feels the best in my body. There's other things too that are healthy to other people that just don't feel good in my body. Quinoa and like the brassicas, like broccoli and kale and all this kind of stuff, it doesn't work for me. So, I've cultivated this really, really nuanced way of eating, and I love the food that I eat, and I enjoy it, and it's nourishing, and food for me isn't something that I deprive. It's not like the deprivation conversation doesn't come into it, but I also don't have this need to binge. Like I will eat food, I'll really enjoy it, and then I satiate, and I'm like, okay, I'm done, and I move on to the next thing. And I never ever knew how to do that. I never.
That is so beautiful. And I love that you say that, just listening to your body. I mean, even as I've got Neve, a 2-year-old, and I've got my little 4-year-old boy, and it's like, I really even honor them at this stage, because it's like they know exactly what they need, right?
Yes,
and it's like, oh, I don't like kale, like, or right now he'll just come out with, I know right now I need some cucumber, or right now, and it's just like, and I just really honor that. And it's not like, oh, finish everything on that plate. It's like, I'm done. Okay, perfect. So at this early stage, it's like trying to even support this healthy relationship with food, and just listening to your body and what it needs. And I know what you're talking about is so much deeper. It's like, it isn't really even about the food. It's just about how we feel about ourselves. Do we love ourselves? Do we have pain that we have not looked at, that we're trying to numb? So I understand that you're saying, but I even just think, to have that relationship where you listen to your body. And though everyone might say kale's amazing, well, this doesn't feel great for my body.
Totally, totally, Amanda. And here's the thing that I find. So it's like, yes, trusting our bodies is, oh yeah, just trust your body. It's the same thing as like, oh yeah, just love yourself. Oh yeah, just have self-compassion. Oh yeah, just feel your worth. And the thing is that we don't, and why, and so what I really realized with many, many women, I mean, the weight loss industry is a $60 billion industry, and yet, in the United States, there's like about 33 million women who struggle with food addiction, and women are, they're struggling because they're trying to fix their food problem by fixing their food, by getting the right food plan, by, and yes, being nourished by the proper nutrition is just super important. But what I found is that if a lot of women are trying to fix a problem that they don't fully understand. They don't fully understand what addiction is. There's a lot of misunderstanding around what addiction is. And so oftentimes women are trying to fix a problem they don't fully understand with an incomplete solution. So that's one challenge that I really, really see with women. And another one is that they actually don't trust themselves, because when you have made so many promises to yourself that you're not going to go for that food, or that you're not going to do that behavior, or that you're going to go work out, or you're going to do these things, and then you don't, or you go back to the behavior, then you start to lose confidence in yourself and your own ability to trust yourself to make healthy choices.
Absolutely. And then you kind of feel depressed about that. And then you go eat more,
Exactly.
stuff that's going to numb that.
Exactly. And it affects your self-worth, and it affects your confidence. And then you start feeling inauthentic, and then you feel like you can't really be you, because the real you is someone who's somehow broken, or, just like wrong or bad. And so you've got to be someone else. And then we create new layers of inauthenticity. And and then that creates even more incongruence, which ultimately leads to more addiction. And so we have all of these vicious cycles that are set up inside. And that's why when I'm working with a woman, I'm like, okay, let's start here. Let's actually start with really, really having you get clarity on what your real problem is. And I guide women through a 6-step self-diagnostic process where they uncover their own truth. Because I say, look, I am a food addiction expert, but I am certainly not your expert. Every single person, we have outsourced our power to so many people, places, and things over our life. And we second guess ourselves so much that I'm a huge fan of, let me provide the framework to guide you along so that you can actually engage with your own inner experience and uncover your own truth. That becomes, that is teaching women how to really come back home to themselves. I explain to my clients, like, look, it's like the Wizard of Oz. You're Dorothy, and you're here to learn how to come back home to yourself. And you don't need the wizard behind the curtain. You don't even need Glinda the Good Witch,
Mm-hmm.
like, yes, these are angels on your path, perhaps, but ultimately this is about you reintegrating your courage and your heart and getting your mind aligned, and not in like stuck in sabotage thoughts, like I don't have a brain, and these things. And so ultimately that's what I love to do with women. And then really, there is actually some very grounded spiritual work that I do with women that really, really helps them to get free from the stuff that is blocking them so that they can actually come back to their own inner guidance, because
so
inner
important.
guidance, it's so important.
Yeah. Because I mean, if they come to you and you're like, okay, here's, and like, they just kind of feel like, well, I need to speak to you every single week from here on out, and it's like, no, you just remember who you are, and like, heal whatever hurts, work through whatever needs to be released, old patterns, old thoughts, old beliefs, whatever needs to be healed. And then it's like you get to be kind of like your own guru, and not, look outside yourself and or numb whatever you need to. And I just love that you do that. Would you mind sharing some of these grounding techniques, or, what you would do if something, because I know that there's lots of people listening that are like, oh my goodness, like I want to know more. Like, so could you, if
Yeah.
somebody came to you and shared, like, I'm everything that you're saying, I'm having a hard time, I'm binge eating, I'm not feeling good, I'm feeling empty, whatever, like how would
Yes.
you go from there?
Yes. Well, really, there's three components that I help my clients with. The first one is really around connection. And so when we're talking about connection, we're talking about connection with self. So we're really connecting into our bodies, and not just connecting in like an exercise way. Because again, I was a health and fitness expert and I was very disconnected from my body. So there's deep embodiment practices, and I can share one of those in a moment. And then there's connection to source. And so one of the huge things that I work with my clients is really, it's not, my clients typically come to me with spiritual beliefs. It's not that they don't have beliefs, but they're blocked from access. And so it's really important that so we work on getting them free from the things that are blocking them from truly accessing their relationship with source. And so they can come back into a congruent relationship with that. And then there's also sistership. So what I found is the community aspect is really important, because I want to just like clarify that while I help women come back home to themselves and cultivate that inner guidance, it's also not about, like, a lot of women who struggle with addiction struggle with isolation and feeling alone and thinking that they have to do it alone because they're really embarrassed about their behavior. And so they don't want to tell anyone else about it. And so what is really important is connecting with other like-minded women who get you, who you can be real with, who also are spiritual women, who also, are business women, and who have very similar, they have felt the same way, they've acted the same way, they've seen, the same things in their lives, they've thought the same way. And to get into a community of that is invaluable. And so it's not something that I just help women with one-on-one and they get to stay in their own little bubble. A huge part of the whole freedom formula is actually being connected with a very intimate, sacred sisterhood that I call the Freedom Sisterhood. So the connection piece is really important. And then it's also really important for women to get clarity. And part of getting clarity is moving from the I know. We are so full of everything that we think that we know, and it's blocking us from what we don't know and from what's available to us. And what I share with my clients is, well, that's great, but everything that you know brought you to where you are right now. And so if you want to go any further, then it follows that you're going to want to set aside everything that you think that you know, so that you can be open for a new experience. And so I really start in that place with my clients. And then from there, they're able to get the clarity that they need on what they've been missing and really understand what their real problem is. There is an aspect that we have to address the mind, but we're not going to do it by trying to use the mind to fix the mind. So it's like Einstein says, no problem can be solved from the same consciousness that created it. So we can't we can't try to think ourselves out of addiction or think ourselves out of these patterns. And yet there is an aspect to which clarity is a huge part of that freedom foundation that I would do with my client. So I'll share with you a little tool about that really help with clarity. And then the final piece is around congruence. And like I mentioned, when we're talking about what congruence is, when a person is acting incongruently, it means that the way that they are feeling inside is not matching how they're behaving on the outside. So let's say I am feeling insecure or lonely or scared or sad or depressed or any of these things on the inside, or I walk into a room and I'm feeling so uncomfortable and I'm feeling really, really self-conscious, but somebody says, "Hey, how are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm great. Hi, how are you?" And we just, we act different, or maybe we stuff down something instead of speaking up, and we withhold instead of telling the truth. And these are all ways that we are living incongruently, like I said earlier, like leading that double life and acting one way on the outside, like, okay, well, I've got to look like I have it together. I've got to make everyone else think that I have it together, even though inside I'm an anxious wreck, and all that stuff really, really sets us up for addiction, because addiction loves incongruency.
Mm-hmm.
And addiction cannot live in a congruent environment. It just doesn't, it doesn't have like, it can't get a foothold on anything, because there's just nothing, there's nothing for it to kind of like grasp onto. And so ultimately what really addresses the inner spiritual, aspect of addiction, is helping women to become congruent internally. Mm-hmm. And so that becomes a big piece. So it's like the connection piece really addresses the body, because addiction is a body, mind, and spirit a problem. And so the connection addresses the body, and the clarity addresses the mind, and the congruence addresses the spirit. And what I've found is that when women are engaged in all three of those areas, they experience not just freedom, but embodied freedom. Embodied freedom means that they are feeling, like confident and present, and they're feeling lighter, and they're trusting themselves to make healthy choices, and they're living authentically, and they're helping others. They're experiencing it in their lives. Mm-hmm. That is embodying freedom.
Yeah. And there isn't a ton of energy going to, when am I eating? When am I not eating? How are we looking?
Exactly.
And it's just like, I love that your word. It is just freedom. It's just freedom to be deeper in your relationships, freedom creatively, freedom to be in your service and know what that is and be successful in that, because you're not constantly worrying about what am I eating, am I doing this, and just all that energy going there that drains you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in terms of some really specific tools, I can share one maybe in each area. Would that be helpful?
Amazing. Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah. Wonderful. So connection. One of the things that I do with my clients, and I have an entire inner guidance system training that I do with my clients to really, really help them cultivate connection and really, really access their gut instinct and their divine intuition, their sixth sense intuition and their divine inspiration, and a whole body awareness building, set of practices that I do. But one tool that, just because so many women come to me and they are anxious, they feel alone, they feel disconnected. And so immediately I'll say, well, anxiety and obsession and overwhelm and all of those things that are taking you outside of you and making you feel disconnected, they're all up in your head. And so the first thing that you want to do is just come down into your body and feel your feet on the ground. And I do this all the time. I literally just feel the soles of my feet on the ground and just become really, really aware of the sensations in the soles of my feet, any warmth, any tingling. I just connect energetically with the earth, whether I'm in an airplane, in a car, on the third floor of a building, it doesn't matter. I energetically connect to the earth that exists beneath my feet. And I just feel that. And I'm telling you, it's an instant anxiety shifter.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. I completely agree. First thing in the morning, and yes. I even, we do it as a family, even it's like, just feel the roots going deep in, or, for me, I just go out for a walk in the forest, or, at the beach, or even if it's just out into your garden, but it's just that connection. It's just like, okay, I'm in my body, or yoga or dance, or I suppose anything that's going to get you fully into your body. Right.
Well, yes. And I find that there's something very powerful. It was so beautiful because I was just on a call with my clients yesterday. We had one of our coaching calls, and I was listening to women all over the world, and they were describing the different, environments that they're going to walk in nature in. And it was just something that made me so happy because I'm like, we just need more women walking around in nature. But, not everybody, I mean, when it's like the dead of winter and whatever, not everybody can do that. And yet there's something still very, very powerful about wherever you are, in an office building, wherever you are, just to feel your feet. And it's instant shifter out of that anxiety, out of that overwhelm, and really helping you get into the present moment. And so that's one tool that I do with my clients. And I also just on the connection side of things, and connecting into their bodies, I really help my clients use their 5 senses to access their 6th sense. And so coming into, just picking any one of your senses and bringing all of your focused awareness and attention into that sense, and allowing everything just to come into that moment right there. And it becomes this really, really juicy, palpable moment of presence and connection and availability. So there's just, so those are just some really, really simple practices that
I love that. Yeah. And I just did it while you were saying it. I just brought it all into your beautiful voice and just hearing and like everybody could just take a second to do that now,
Yes. I mean, this is what I do. So we can do it right now. Absolutely. So in this moment, if you just bring all of your awareness to everything that you are hearing right now, including my voice, including maybe the hum of cars, sound of birds, the hum of electricity. And just taking a deep inhale, and on your exhale, see if you can turn the volume up on everything that you're hearing in this moment. Welcoming everything that you hear as part of the symphony of right now. How did that feel?
That felt amazing because it just brings you just so into the present moment. And I really am present because when I have incredible conversations with amazing, amazing women like you, I'm just like before we get on, I do a little meditation and I connect with your beautiful energy and I surround us with white light. And my intention is when we're interviewing together, I'm going to be fully present with you. But then that exercise just took it to a whole nother level.
Yeah. And that's what's so great about these things, is that wherever you are, it'll just take you to the next level, and that's actually a really beautiful thing, because, when I tend to attract women who, like, 80% of their life is just great, and a lot of them are like, I used to have a lot of these patterns, but I'm so much better now. And I say, yeah, that's great. But wherever you are now, what if it could just get even more amazing?
Who's going to say no to that, right?
I know. Yeah. So that's the connection piece. And really, on the clarity side, I teach my clients a set aside prayer. Another thing that I do, though, is that you could actually use breath as the set aside prayer. And so in any moment, you can just inhale in and just inhale in the intention of setting aside everything you think you know for an open mind and a new experience. And imagine that breath coming into your body and washing through your entire system, every single cell of your body, just washing it free of every thought, every attachment, every pattern, everything that you think that you know, everything that you think that you are, everything that you think that other people know, everything that you think that you need, everything that you think is possible, just allowing that breath to really wash all of that away so that you are open for a new experience. So that's part of the set-aside practices that we do.
And again, with that exercise you just took me and everybody through, I just got even more present. It's just like amazing how there's all these layers to being present with what is. And like I really feel like that's the magical place right there. That's where you have freedom and you have, creativity is flowing. Your energy and your vibrancy is high. It's like, it's so beautiful. Thank you.
It's so beautiful. And it's actually such you just completely teed me up for the last thing that I was going to share, which is really, it's around congruence. And so again, congruence can be this big thing. And especially when we're talking about spiritual alignment, there are so many, we already have so many attachments about what that means and what we do. And it tends to bring a lot of us up into, like our heads and thinking about, like divinity from the heavens and, whatever our attachments are. And none of that is wrong or bad. But what I find is that when we have areas of blockage inside of us, when we have ways that we are withholding and we're not speaking up, at the throat chakra, and we have things that are weighing heavy on our hearts, fear and resentment and blame and shame and these things, when we're not trusting our guts, when we're full of inner judgment and lack of worth, when we don't feel safe or we're not really grounded or we're really anxious or overwhelmed and we're not standing on our own 2 feet, all of these things create this experience of incongruency inside. And so when I start with women, like I mentioned earlier, I start with the Freedom Foundation, which is actually starting from the bottom and going up, which I believe is a very, very feminine way of freedom. It's a feminine trajectory of freedom, is really starting with the foundation. And so the foundation that I start all my clients with, that just pierces through all of the attachments, because I'm not about women trying to fix themselves. We are addicted to fixing ourselves. And addicted to fixing whatever we think is wrong or bad or broken. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And instead of just being like, I'm whole and perfect, as I am right now.
Yes.
And
and there's ways that I want to come into deeper levels of congruency so that I can serve more people in the world. Fantastic. Let's do that. So
absolutely.
So where I really start with women is with honesty. And so you said, just being present to what is, and it is so much that, because see, addiction, one of the ways that addiction loves to hide in delusion and denial and distraction. And so what I find is that women are really busy. They don't have time, they don't have time for themselves. They don't have time to really deal. They don't have time to meditate. They don't have time to self-care. They're in denial. Well, it's not that big of a deal. I have control over it. It only happens when I do this. I only use it for this particular emotion when I'm feeling this. And I kind of say, well, let's have a look at that. Do you only do these patterns with food when you're sad or lonely? Or do you also do them when you're excited, when you're at a party, when it's Tuesday, when it's, it's just sort of like, let's really get real. And let's get real about what you've tried. Like, let's have a look at it and stop living in, the kind of like, it's not that big of a deal, or I just don't really want to look at this thing over here.
Absolutely.
And so getting honest is a really, really big league spiritual thing to do.
And you know what I think when it comes to honesty, like, we talk about, the subconscious, unconscious mind runs 95% of the show, right? So your conscious mind is like 5%. So, on some level, you're saying to somebody, when you're doing this incredible work, you're like, okay, be honest. But she or he or they may not know what their truth is, and that's what this process
Right.
is about,
That's
discovering.
it. That's it. Because I didn't know how many layers of dishonesty I was living in. If somebody asked me, are you an honest person? I would say, of course I'm an honest person.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how much I was lying to myself. I didn't realize how much I was fibbing or smoothing over the truth or just withholding truth, which was a level of dishonesty. But I was like, no, I'm just not telling them everything, and so here's the thing. Here's why people don't want to get honest, is that they associate being honest with, they say, well, gosh, I already feel so crappy about myself. Getting honest is just gonna make me feel more crappy about myself because it's just going to illuminate all of the things that I don't already like. And here's the thing, is that honesty isn't about self-pity. Honesty is not about self-judgment, and it's not about taking us down a path of shame and humiliation. And I think that we think that if we get honest with ourselves, that's what that means. But what I have found is that when you're held in the proper container with the proper support and ask the right questions that really allow you to get honest in a way that doesn't take you down those paths, those rabbit holes, then what you're able to do with honesty is you're able to go from honesty to curiosity instead of condemnation.
Absolutely.
And curiosity is another, it's like the next step up. You have the foundation of honesty. The next step up is really cultivating curiosity. And because from that place, when we're open, instead of condemning and judgmental, and this is how it is, and I know, and it should be like this, and I should be able to do it better, and blah, 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 and all that kind of judgment stuff, when we're open, we become willing.
Absolutely.
And that right there is the access point, my sisters.
That's it. I love that. That's so beautiful. And, I don't know if you've read it, David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force. It's been around a while, but, they have this chart, and I love it because it's this energy chart, and it's like in the 0s to 10, it's like guilt and shame. And, then you go up and you come to acceptance, forgiveness, and then love, and then enlightenment. And that's in the thousands, right? It's infinite. But it's like those guilt and shame, they're like the lowest vibration. And when you're thinking, I've got to keep this a secret, I can't tell anyone, it's like it starts to get bigger and bigger, and then it starts to get what you think in your own mind, it gets bigger than you, and then it's like it's controlling the show, like the ego, this energy that you're so busy trying to keep a secret, that you're having shame and guilt, rather than be like, here's my truth, and I'm going to put it all out there and be raw for a while,
That's it. And what I find is that, the women, at least who I tend to talk to, they are used to holding space for other people. They're usually the leaders, the coaches, the inspirers, the ones who others look to. And so oftentimes they don't know where to go, where they can be held. And so they do keep it a secret because they don't actually know where they can go. And what I found is that it's really important for those women to feel like they have a safe space where they can unravel. They can be safe in that. They're not going to be judged for not having it together, and that they can actually connect with someone who knows exactly where they've been and who can hold them in that, and actually not just hold them, but show them the specific step-by-step little tiny micro actions to take so that they can actually get on their path of freedom. And so it is, it is really important to come out of that secrecy. And we also want to make sure that we honor ourselves. We continue to self-care in that we allow ourselves to be in that vulnerable place in a safe setting where we're going to actually get what we need and be supported, instead of just like, plastering something out on Facebook, for example, and then just being, open to the wolves.
Absolutely. And I love that you say self-care, because I really just like, if it's okay, I'm like, when I speak to incredible women like you, I'm like, can you just tell us like what a day of self-care or just a week of self-care, like tell us about that, please.
Yes, I can, because Amanda, and this is me, and I here's the thing too, is that my clients know this, I walk the path alongside them. I do the exact same things that I teach them. And when I rest on my laurels and like, like don't do these things on a consistent basis, I start to get crunchy too. I start to get, up in my stuff and, back in my ego and all this kind of stuff. And, anyway. And so I just recently realized that I was over giving and under receiving. I feel like that is such a common pattern for so many women. And but I realized that I was doing it. And because I love service so much, and I get so much from helping women all over the world, that it fills me in a way. But oftentimes I don't really pay attention to my own health. And so my body was like, excuse me. And so I recently have just been on this deep dive of like, okay, because I'm being called and asked to step up to even bigger levels of contribution in the work that I'm doing, it's requiring me to step up in even bigger levels of receiving and self-care and nourishment. And what does that mean for me? And so
I just got chills.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And it's really an honor. And so that's been very, very up for me right now. And so I've been in this inquiry of like, okay, what is nourishment for me today? And for me, deep nature is very, very nourishing. And I actually I just got back. I booked a few days. I rented a cabin out in the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas, and just went out there to just have a little working retreat and to just be steeped in nature while I was working. And then I'm actually I now have my eyes set on for August going to Kauai, and actually just like basing myself there. So there are some sort of like, okay, I like will travel kind of thing, but on a more, like day-to-day basis, like what women can do in their own home, that are things that I very much do. Something that really, really helps me. And it sounds like you do similar things. First of all, in the morning when I wake up, I don't have a rigid structure of what I do, and yet I have the same things that always happen. I'm always going to do something movement or grounding based, something connecting into my body. And I'm always going to do some meditation, journaling, quiet time, reflection time. I'm always going to do some kind of meditation, some kind of movement stuff in the morning. I tend to take, I only start my workday around like 10 or 11 in the morning. And my entire morning is really dedicated to the, fueling my body with the nourishment that feels best for me, with movement. There's a body work practice that I got certified in years ago that I do myself. It's called the MELT method, and it hydrates connective tissue and balances the nervous system. So I do some of that in the morning. I do my meditation. So it's really just a juicy time of being really steeped in me. And then again, I bookend that at the end of the day with what I really love to do is as it starts to get dark, I start to move away from artificial lights, and I move to candlelight. And so my day slowly gets more and more into really preparing for, the more yin cycle of the evening. And I really shift out of those actions that are more part of like the yang energy of doing and, working and that kind of stuff. And I really get into, okay, stretching and reading and, just like simply just being in my home by candlelight just completely shifts the energy and really prepares me. And then taking a really nice warm shower, and those things just feel so, so good.
Oh, and then that lends to a beautiful night's sleep, which is, I think, almost one of the biggest self-care rituals.
It is so much. And I slept 10 hours last night.
Woohoo! I celebrate you. That is amazing. And that you give yourself permission and space for that, and that you're, it's beautiful.
It was great.
Oh, thank you so much. You are just so, so incredible. And I would love to ask you how can we support you? Because just like all that you do and all that you
Oh.
are, like, please, we're all listening right now. How can we support you?
Oh, oh my goodness. You know, I really love connecting and hearing from women. I really, really do. And I have, like, on my website, for example, I've got lots of free resources and videos and articles that I've written, and things like that. And gosh, I mean, I would just love if there's a woman out there who's resonating with what I'm sharing, who wants more, who wants to connect, who wants to ask me a question, who wants to engage further. Like, I would just love to, I would love for you to go to freefromfoodaddiction.com and reach out to me, send me a message, or just engage with the all of the free resources there and comment on them. And yeah, I mean, I am a teacher through and through, like that. I just love teaching. I love sharing. I love that process of learning and teaching. And so I'm constantly learning from my clients. And so I love to hear what women want to know more about, and we can discuss it and I can help. So that's how you could really help me.
That's so beautiful. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, and from all of us, just for being here and just sharing your love and your wisdom and your light with us.
Oh, thank you so much, Amanda. It was such an honor to be here.
Well, I would just love to invite our listeners to share with us here in the comments what came up for you today. Like, what, as you were hearing this incredible wisdom from Debbie and just her experiences and tools that she used, please, share what's come up for you. Even share like some of your self-care rituals. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll look forward to next time.
Thanks, beloveds, for joining us today. Please come over to amandacons.com to continue the conversation and get access to all my podcasts, blogs, and videos. Did you enjoy this podcast? If so, please subscribe to the Amanda Cons podcast on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. Feel free to pass this podcast on to your friends. That helps us get incredible guests to share their secrets for an inspired and joyful life. If you want more great resources, come over to amandacons.com and join my mailing list for all my latest content. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, I'm sending love